So 2 weeks ago, if you remember, Father Steve started us on this new series, So That You May Believe. And you remember he said that Jesus wanted to marry you. You remember that? Okay, man, you're good. You're awake tonight. Jeez. This is going to be fun then. Okay, and then last week, Deacon Omar talked about how we accept that proposal, how we say yes. Do you remember that? Okay. So this week, the honeymoon is over. This week, we talk about suffering. And it comes from that question that Jesus asked his disciples, "Can you drink the cup that I drink?" And they were really excited. They were wanting to be the greatest. So, of course, they responded probably almost immediately, "Yeah, we can do that, no problem." But to me, it seems like their answer might have been just a little bit premature, because I don't know if they really understood what drinking that cup meant. And what it meant was that, right there. It meant the suffering that Jesus did to redeem the world. So everything Jesus went through, being condemned, being whipped with chains and beaten till he was bloody and broken, all the names he was called, being spit on, all that humiliation, the crown of thorns, the cross, the nails, and finally his death were all done for a purpose. And the purpose was us. He suffered all that so that we would be redeemed, so that we would be set free from all of the evil and all of the sin in the world that separates us from him. He suffered so that we would be rejoined to the loving embrace of God our Father. So Jesus suffered to rescue you. So, knowing that, the response he gave to his disciples can be almost a little frightening, can it? When he said, "The cup I drink, you will drink." So, we're sitting here in this church right now, or watching on YouTube or whatever at home, as his disciples. So he's telling that to us. The cup I drink, you will drink. And it seems like we don't have much of a choice, do we? We will suffer. In one way or another, to a small degree or a great degree, in this life, we will suffer. There's just no getting around it. But like Jesus, our suffering does not have to be meaningless. It can have a purpose. Sure, it's hard, it's painful, it's nothing that we have ever asked for, we didn't ask to do it, but it can still have a purpose. And the purpose is this. It's to help Jesus to continue to redeem the world by leading to the conversion of souls, by bringing about conversions, by drawing people closer and closer to God. St. Therese of Lisieux said that bearing suffering gladly for others converts more people than any sermon or any homily ever would. So when we suffer for others and join our suffering to Jesus, we become co-redeemers. And something else happens. That suffering then becomes for us a spiritual sacrifice, something we are choosing to do. And we choose to do it often in prayer. And you might say something like, "Jesus, like you did for me, I will accept and I will endure this suffering. And I'll give all my afflictions, all my pain to you, so that my spouse or my kids or whoever might grow closer to you and love you. So when we suffer that way, the intention of our suffering has a name. It has a face. And it gives us purpose. We have a purpose. So when we suffer that way, that's how we become co-redeemers. And we bring that sacrifice here with us to Mass. And when we hear Father Carl at Mass tonight praying the Eucharistic prayer, say, "May my sacrifice and yours be acceptable to God the Almighty Father." Right then and there we join our sacrifice to the sacrifice of Jesus. And he does something. He releases and meets that sacrifice with great spiritual power. And he gives us all the grace and all the consolation that we would need. And that's another reason for our suffering, consolation. We suffer so we can console others so that they might believe. When you think of what Mary did, our mother Mary, how she was there and she saw her son all beat up, bleeding, barely alive. She heard all the names that they called him. She heard their cries for him to be killed, to be crucified. Their eyes even met when she was in the crowd watching him try to carry his cross. And then she stood at the foot of the cross and watched him hanging there. And then she watched him die there. But Mary didn't stop. She didn't change anything. But she was with her son until the end. An example for us of how to console. So when we are going to console somebody who is suffering, we notice them, we see them, we become present to them, we make ourselves present to them, and we accompany them just like Mary accompanied Jesus. And just like her, we might not change anything in this person's life, but at least they're not going to suffer alone. So we can console because we suffer. Because we suffer, we can console. We can share God's consolation with others. You know, St. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, said, "God consoles us in every affliction, so that we can console others in any affliction with the same consolation with which God consoles us." So because we suffer, we can console. The person we're consoling shows us the face of the suffering Jesus, and we share his love back. So the cup he drinks, we will drink. But suffering can have a great value. So if you're suffering something right now, ask the Holy Spirit to put that person in the mind that you're going to endure this for. Put a name or a face to the intention of your suffering. Right now, give your suffering purpose. Make it that sacrifice. When Father prays the Eucharistic prayer, just give it to Jesus. Combine your sacrifice with the sacrifice of Jesus and give it to him. And then receive whatever grace, consolation, power he wants to give you. You can do that right here tonight. And if you know somebody who is suffering, maybe not here, out there, I invite you to just go be with them and just accompany them. You know, whether we're suffering or whether we're consoling, each of us can have a really intimate encounter with Jesus and continue to help him redeem the world.